Alright, if this is what they're titling the second one, does that mean in a few years we're gonna get a third movie titled Beetlejuice Beetlejuice Beetlejuice? Relax, calm down, you act like he's real or something. Ah, crap! So Beetlejuice is a weird movie for me personally because I've never been all that attached to it. The first time I watched it, I was like, yeah, there's some merit here. I can understand why some people like this. I'm not into this total Tim Burton weirdish style, honestly. But upon rewatching it the day before seeing the second one in the theater, I don't know, something about it clicked with me more. And as it stands right now, it is my second favorite Tim Burton film, second only to Batman from 1989. So with the sequel, I was going in slightly pessimistic. I honestly am kind of over this let's dig up an old IP that we haven't exploited for all it's worth trend that Hollywood is going through right now because they are creatively bankrupt, and making a legacy sequel to Beetlejuice just felt weird. But I gotta say, I gotta give props to this film for not just retreading the plot of the first film, Force Awakens, Jurassic World style, and actually just kind of continuing the story with these characters using the same lore and world building elements that were established in the first film and just kind of branching out and telling something new, at least until the third act when things get really clunky. But overall, I had a pretty good time with this movie. Not a perfect film by any means, but I did enjoy my time with it. I thought plenty of the jokes landed. I thought the practical effects blended with the modern technology worked really well. The performances were solid all around. Michael Keaton's back in the saddle for the first time in all these years, and I'm glad to see that he slips into this role like he never left it. Same can be said for a lot of the other supporting cast, namely Catherine O'Hara. That woman is funny. She delivers on every front. She was honestly probably one of the funniest parts of this film aside from Beetlejuice. You got a pretty big cast here. You got Winona Ryder back. You got Jenna Ortega now in the mix. Justin Theroux, Willem Dafoe, Monica Bellucci. There's a ton of names in this film, and that is to the film's benefit and to its detriment because, yeah, you have a lot of good actors in here, and you have a lot of cool and interesting characters, but do they all get the justice that they deserve? Well, no, they don't. This is an overstuffed film front to back. There are so many different subplots that are running parallel to each other, and so many character relationships that are being worked on that a lot of them get forgotten about. And I am not even kidding. Monica Bellucci is the intended antagonist of this film. There are numerous times throughout the film where I just forgot she even existed until she showed up again. There's a couple other characters, namely Willem Dafoe's character, that I kind of felt that way about too, because these are just characters who were so non-essential to the plot, it felt, and it really bummed me out because they clearly had some intention to do something interesting with these characters, and then they just, like, I don't know, by the time things wrapped up, it just wasn't as succinct and it wasn't as satisfying. They could have done a lot more, and they just chose not to, or maybe there was just something that got left in the cutting room, and that's just how it went. If you're a fan of the first Beetlejuice movie, I think you're going to enjoy this one. I honestly can't imagine someone who loved the first one walking into this and walking out completely disappointed or just insulted. This film delivers on the nostalgia a lot, but I felt like it wasn't quite beating you over the head with it like a lot of these other legacy sequels have been doing in the past. Yeah, you get the sandworm for a scene. Yeah, you get the Day-O song, played in kind of a weird spot, honestly. There's plenty of locations that are familiar. There's just stuff in here that, yeah, you remember from the last one, but it's not beating you over the head with nostalgia and making that the only marketable thing here. We actually have a narrative that goes in a new direction, and I appreciated that. And the really awkward part of this is Jeffrey Jones, because, well, ever since the first film, he has, let's say, created a record of sorts for himself. And I get it, man. I wouldn't want to work with that dude either. But it does feel weird just how they excuse his absence from this movie. And I'm not going to get into too much detail. I'll save that for the spoiler section. But man, they wanted that to feel personal. So overall, I think this film is well shot, plays up the nostalgia in a respectable way that doesn't completely compromise the plot and just make that the marketing tactic is, ooh, remember this? But it does manage to bring back what you love, incorporate something new, and I would say that makes for a pretty entertaining time. Not flawless, but entertaining nonetheless. If I can lob one major piece of criticism at this film, It is Jenna Ortega's character. Now, I do like Jenna Ortega as an actress, don't get me wrong. She is pretty good in just about everything I've seen her in. But it's just this tired old trope I'm really getting sick of in these legacy sequels where we take the main character from the original movie and all of a sudden, all these years later, we make them a deadbeat parent with a horrible relationship with their child. Can we stop doing this? Han Solo, Rick Deckard, Indiana Jones twice. We got the Harrison Ford trifecta right here. Logan, Joel Miller, Egon Spangler, Mike Lowry, and even more recently, Axel Foley. Now, some of these have worked a lot better than others, I will say, but not every character that we grow up loving has to turn into a horrible parent who doesn't know how to interact with their child and has fallen out with them just so we can generate some sort of superficial conflict and give the kids something to do. At that point, don't even give them a kid. However, I did think her character arc was going in an interesting direction despite having that baggage behind it. Okay, so I'm going to get into spoilers really quick. So if you don't want to know anything about this movie and you haven't seen it yet, then you want to go to this time code in the video. Just scroll over to that time code right there, and you will bypass all the spoilers and go right to my final rating and final thoughts on the film. And I promise those will not have any spoilers in them whatsoever. So we're going to get into spoilers in 3, 2, 1. Spoilers begin now. Now, I will say, it feels weird not having Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis in this movie, considering how integral they were to the first film and how connected they were with these characters. But apparently there was some miscellaneous line that I totally missed in the movie that my girlfriend told me about after we saw it that explained away why they weren't in this movie. And whatever, it's fine. I mean, Alec Baldwin was in enough trouble as it is right now with the whole Rust situation, so I didn't expect him to come back for this one in any capacity, but it does feel weird that they are absent from this plot, seeing as how they were the main focus of the first movie. So Monica Bellucci, not a great villain at all. They set her up like she was going to be the big bad, and she really did nothing. I mean, her name was... What was her name again? Oh, yeah, right. My girlfriend happened to point out a reference that I didn't catch and I thought was actually pretty clever with regard to her character. As she's assembling all her, severed limbs and everything, the last piece of her body to come together is her ring finger. And the interesting part about that is in the first Beetlejuice movie, when he's, trying to marry a 14-year-old like the creep he is, the zombie priest dude asks if he has the ring and he reaches into his jacket and he pulls out a finger with a ring on it and he goes,
"I'm telling you, honey, she meant nothing to me. Nothing at all."
And that's meant to be a reference to Dolores. Speaking of that wedding, yeah, they just totally redid that at the end. The whole movie, I'm thinking, wow, I'm glad we have a movie that isn't just redoing everything we already know from the first movie. And then we get to the end. Beetlejuice once again is trying to marry Lydia. Lydia once again is in a red dress. The wedding once again doesn't work out because they found a loophole in the agreement they made with Beetlejuice, and suddenly they resolve that plot. Speaking of resolved plots, oh my gosh, does that third act speed run through plot resolution. I mean, we already had the whole thing with the kid who was baiting Jenna Ortega, like, oh, hey, sorry, I'm evil, bye, I'm out. Then we have the greedy new boyfriend for Lydia, and he's just like, oh yeah, I just got injected with truth serum, and by the way, I'm spilling my guts. I'm actually trying to steal all your money because I'd make more as your husband than I would as your manager. All the cops that Willem Dafoe is leading just come into the final battle and freeze because they literally have nothing for them to do. They're literally frozen in time. Monica Bellucci is dealt with lickety-split. That was not hard at all. And then we just wrap up and oh, yep, wedding. Remember that from the first one? Okay, we're done. Now getting on to the Jeffrey Jones bit, I thought it was absolutely hilarious how they were doing a claymation of how he died. And while they're doing this, Catherine O'Hara and Winona Ryder are narrating over it, and they're making it seem like an inconvenience, like death isn't something significant, like they aren't broken up about this. Catherine O'Hara's just like, oh, can you believe this? He died. Your dad's dead. And then Lydia's just like, what? Ah, man. And like, obviously not to that same effect, but that's kind of the feel I was getting for the scene. I mean, you'd think he just like lost a bunch of money on some gambling bet or got delayed in his flight. But instead, he was on a flight and then his plane crashed. But don't worry, he survived the crash only to get eaten by a shark. I'm sorry. That was hilarious. They wanted to make it very clear, we don't like this guy, and we will do whatever we need to not have to show his face of his body in the afterlife. So overall, I had a fun time with it. I went in very skeptical considering Tim Burton's track record in recent years, and considering I didn't think that this film warranted a sequel all that well. but was pleasantly surprised with the outcome. While it wasn't completely perfect, my mom, my girlfriend, and I all had fun seeing it in the theater. For a final score, I'm giving this one a 7 out of 10. So those are my thoughts on Beetlejuice Beetlejuice. Have you seen it? Let me know down below if you have, and if you liked it, whether you hated it. I would love to see how our opinions differ. Just don't be at each other's throats over it. Just a movie after all, not the most important thing in the world. If you want to see more of my stuff and follow me on socials, they're all linked down below in the description. I've got Instagram, Letterboxd, GG, and Serialized. I also highly suggest subscribing to this channel if you like videos like these. I try to use YouTube Shorts every now and then for out-of-theater reactions, for clips of these longer reviews, and hopefully bring in new viewers. So if you like this video, be sure to hit that like button down below. I'll have more reviews dropping in the coming weeks because there are plenty more releases on the horizon as it is right now. But until then, God be with you and take care.